Hello and welcome. I'm Jaime Ocon with news from around Taiwan. In case you missed it, Taiwan carried out its largest annual military drills, the Han Kuang exercises, in late July. Those exercises have been carried out for over 40 years and simulate how the country would respond to an attack from China. It started with the 46th annual Wan'an air raid drills, which focus on protecting civilians from an attack. Our reporter Lizzie Liao was out on the street to get a closer look at what the exercises are like in Taipei.
We're in Taipei City's Neihu district. In a few moments, sirens will go off telling people that they need to stop what they're doing and seek shelter. This is all part of the 46th annual Wan'an air raid drills. During the drills, traffic will come to a stop and people will need to stay inside for half an hour. The Wan'an drills are taking place all across Taiwan over 4 days. Today is northern Taiwan's turn to conduct the drill. Tomorrow it will be southern Taiwan's turn. Then the day after that, it will be Taiwan's outlying islands and the country's east. And the final day of the drills will happen in central Taiwan. This year, there's one additional measure. One administrative district per municipality will see stronger enforcement. In Taipei this year, that's Neihu district, where we are right now. In any other district in the city, if you're outdoors during the Wan'an air raid drills, well, authorities will just remind you to go indoors. But if you're in one of these designated districts during the drills, you're going to get ushered into an air raid shelter or another safe spot. The Wan'an air raid drills focus on civil defense, how to get people to safety in times of crisis or an attack. And at the same time as the Wan'an air raid drill is going on, you have the Han Kuang military exercises, which mobilizes the country's defense assets to simulate how it would repel an invasion. Now, this comes against the backdrop of aggression from China, which claims Taiwan as part of its territory.
有通行，有通行，请大家关闭水电瓦斯，搭去教室躲避。有通行，请大家关闭水电瓦斯，搭去教室躲避。
And as you can see, we're now in a basement parking lot, which also doubles as an air raid shelter. As you can see, people here are staying where they are, they're sheltering in place, and we're simulating situations where there's no gas, there's no water, there's no electricity, and there's actually not a lot of ventilation in this parking lot, as you see right now. And luckily for the air raid drills, they only need to stay here for half an hour. But if this were an actual air raid, there's no telling how long these people would have to be here.
我想这个演习视同作战，平时如果都准备，那暂时我们就会少一点灾害。我们所有的摊商，说实在能够跪在那里，跪了将近10几分钟，确实也是相当的逼真。
This year's Wan'an air raid drills come at a sensitive time for Taiwan. That's because China is still sending naval ships and warplanes close to the country on a near daily basis as a form of pressure. But the Wan'an air raid drills have been going on for decades now, which prove that Taiwan has been living under the threat of Chinese aggression for quite a while now. And it's drills like these that keep the people prepared just in case. Eason Sun and Leslie Liao for TaiwanPlus.
Plans to conduct military exercises at a civilian airport in eastern Taiwan were canceled, but the military still practiced how it would keep aircraft safe from an attack from China at other facilities. Taiwanese fighter jets are getting ready to leave their home base. For the past 2 weeks, pilots across the country have been training for Taiwan's largest annual military drills, the Han Kuang exercises, by flying back and forth across the main island. It's part of the military's plan to protect as many assets like fighter jets as possible in the event of an attack, and it starts with these pilots.
Planning is extremely important. You can't just expect people to be able to perform without proper training or planning. And I think that's what we should be focusing on, what Taiwan's armed forces should be focusing on in this upcoming exercise.
Taiwan's military was scheduled to use Taidong's Fengnian Airport, a civilian airfield, to practice how to land cargo planes and F-16s on Tuesday. But those drills were canceled due to weather concerns from nearby typhoon Doksuri. The exercises would have practiced a scenario where, in order to protect aircraft, Taiwan would pull back its planes from western bases close to China and redeploy them to the east coast. In the event of a war, this would help Taiwan preserve its fighter planes, but analysts argue that it's only part of the solution.
You know, if a damaged plane lands there, well, do you have the repair parts? Do you have fuel ammunition, that kind of thing, already pre-positioned. Short of that, it's great to have a better, a wider set of places to land in and to deploy from, but it's not going to complicate China's strategy unless you can have all those pre-positioned stockpiles.
China has ramped up its military presence and operations around Taiwan, and there are concerns that Beijing could be ready to launch an attack as early as 2027. While there's no sign of an imminent attack, Taiwan has doubled down on more mobile systems and hardware that has a greater chance of surviving, things like vehicle-mounted missiles and anti-tank weapons. This combination of protecting airfields and beefing up its arsenal is not just a display for the Han Kuang exercises, but some analysts say it's also a demonstration for other countries to see just how prepared Taiwan is.
So the most important message to give China is that Taiwan can hold out. The military of Taiwan can defend the island for at least a month, enough time for the United States military to come to Taiwan's aid. So scale does matter to a degree, but some of the focus on defensive assets, dispersal, so it looks like the military can survive, keep on fighting, and create obstacles for the Chinese military.
Military strategists and officials here at Taiwan's Defense Ministry have been constantly changing and adapting the country's security strategy in light of an evolving situation with China. Now, this week's Han Kuang military exercises are a chance for the country to test its response plan to see if they're effective in ensuring the country's security. One of the highlights of this year's drills was the first ever defense drill at the country's largest airport. I was there early in the morning to see the military in action. For the first time ever, Taiwan's military is conducting a simulated air attack here at Taoyuan International Airport. It comes as day 3 as Taiwan's annual military drills are underway, which tests the country's response to an attack from China, and a part of that response is on display here. Troops are learning how to prevent Chinese soldiers from quickly capturing Taiwan's largest international airport. While soldiers have carried out similar drills in the past, this is the first time it's being done on a potential battlefield.
这个演习通常都是在其他地方做，或者是用模拟的方式。那这次很难得的采取实兵的方式，这也让整个的验证这次演习的实兵演练更接近实战的状况。
Because Taiwan is an island nation, airports and seaports are critical to connecting it with the outside world. In recent years, Beijing's threats towards Taiwan have increased, and so have its military operations in the region. But the two countries are separated by roughly 150 kilometers of ocean, which means an attack on Taiwan can only happen by sea or by air. In addition to helicopters, another possible scenario is Chinese aircraft parachuting in soldiers to capture the airport. If Taiwan doesn't contain and fend off this attack, China could land additional troops and push forward to the capital city Taipei, around 50 kilometers away. Exercises like these are so important for Taiwan because they can help the country adjust and correct its defense strategy.
Most important thing is get them before they land. So if we know that heliborne and airborne troops will be the primary transportation means, then you need to have short-range missiles and guns to take them down before they can land.
Taiwan has invested more in these types of anti-aircraft weapons, but these exercises are an opportunity for the military to see how its current defense plan holds up and if any changes are needed. These drills lasted about 40 minutes. They impacted dozens of flights and affected thousands of travelers. Now, that might seem like it's a lot. It's a small price to pay considering what could happen if the military wasn't trained to defend this vital transport hub. Troops also practice how to defend the coastline against an amphibious attack. I was there to see the last major portion of the Han Kuang exercises. Taiwanese soldiers quickly moving into defensive positions. Then one by one, machine guns and anti-aircraft guns open fire. These troops are training to defend the beach against an all-out amphibious invasion. It's part of the country's largest annual war games, known as the Han Kuang exercises, which simulate an attack by China.
There has been a realization that the People's Republic of China now has almost the military force to take Taiwan, and Taiwan needs to enhance its self-defense in response. And in particular, Taiwan needs to be able to keep the Chinese military from landing on the island.
That's the focus of these anti-landing drills, where a team dressed in red takes on the role of an enemy force trying to capture the beach. And Taiwanese forces, the blue team, use a combination of armored vehicles, attack helicopters, and tanks to fend off the attack. They've chosen this beach in New Taipei City for the exercises for a specific reason. Taiwan's military said that this entire area behind me is a red beach. That means if China were to conduct an attack, it would be one of the most likely ports of entry. The beach isn't rocky, and it's next to a major port and city. There are about 14 of these red beaches on the main island, but this one is one of the closest to the capital city, Taipei, which is why Taiwan has been making sure areas like these are even more fortified.
我们知道，巴黎海滩哦，跟这个台北港以及我们的淡水河口呢，是我们北台湾非常重要的一个战略要地。那么，尤其巴黎海滩哦，是可以让敌人呢，是很适合他敌人正规登陆的一个区域的位置。
For the past few days, Taiwan's military has been conducting exercises like these all across the country. Now, while it is an exercise drill, it's also a sign to other countries of just how ready Taiwan is to defend its security. This year's Han Kuang exercises were the most comprehensive in the country's history. But what was actually different this time? Well, to find out, I spoke to Raymond Guo, a security analyst with the RAND Corporation. Are there any major differences in this year's Han Kuang exercises compared to the years before?
I think the fact that they're using civilian airports is a pretty big deal. It demonstrates, first off, politically, that Taiwan is taking this more seriously, right? If you're only focusing on the military and you kind of isolate the preparations for the military, it doesn't really have much an effect on the general population. It also means, therefore, that the general population isn't as engaged in, say, civil defense and preparation. I think also the fact that they're calling up the reservists, again, the same sort of kind of political or foreign policy signal that it's not just the elites or the political leaders, but the general public that's going to have to take part and prepare themselves for Taiwanese defense. So right off the bat, I think that's a big shift right there.
There's been debate over what kind of defensive strategy Taiwan needs, whether it be an asymmetric strategy with more mobile systems or a traditional defense strategy with things like tanks and fighter jets. But what do you think? What do you think Taiwan should pursue in its defensive strategy?
Taiwan needs to do both things, right? It's not just that on the asymmetric side, sure, having all the many small things are really important, as we've seen in Ukraine, for a small force to defeat a conventional invasion. But these sorts of sovereignty challenges, median line crossings, maritime coercion, where you need the symmetric forces of fighter jets or large naval vessels. So unfortunately, Taiwan needs to do both there. And if it's going to concentrate on one, if it's going to focus on the invasion, for example, then it needs to find some way to offset Chinese advantages in the other sort of gray zone symmetric area.
Another thing that Taiwan is focusing on in this year's exercises is air defense. Why is the Defense Ministry emphasizing this, and what is the importance of that?
Well, I mean, air superiority, or at least denying the enemy air superiority, is extremely important to not just the direct military conflict side, but also on the logistics side. Taiwan has to rely upon shipping. And one of the easiest ways for Chinese forces to disrupt that is the use of its rocket forces or its air force. They have the range, they have the speed, they have the capability. So the more that Taiwan is able to deny air superiority to the Chinese forces, the easier it is not just for the military fight, but also for the logistics fight. That was Raymond Guo from the RAND Corporation. Thank you for watching. In case you missed it, remember to download the TaiwanPlus app for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, today, we leave you with even more images of the coastal defense exercises near the port of Taipei. I'm Jaime Ocon. Take care and see you next time.